Good morning, good evening, good day, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we rate the news essential, important, and optional to help you navigate. I have today John and Ankaj from our regular team, and we have Alden De Rosario joining us, a special guest who runs Custom GPT, a wonderful tool that can help you get on your apps right there immediately. Um, Very good one if you haven't tried it. So, welcome, Alden.
Thanks for having me, Luda.
Great. So let's start with the first article. By the way, the articles are on GAI Insights slash .com slash articles, so you can follow along. Ankash, the
Okay,
first one.
yes, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Google and talks about the agent-to-agent protocol.
Right. So yesterday we saw Google is having an event, the week-long event this week. And yesterday we saw 17 announcements coming as a result of that, maybe more. So this was one of them. It was kind of buried in there, but our viewers, Ashish Bhatia, pointed out to me that this is out there. And so we decided to spend some time on it this morning. So, John, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I think this article is absolutely essential. This announcement is absolutely essential. You have some existing protocols in terms of how agents are working together. Starting with I'm trying to remember how it was the communication protocol from
MCP.
from OpenAI before MCP. I know I'm getting to that, but this was the original function calling capability by OpenAI that was there first, and then MCP came along. And MCP is fundamentally a client server architecture, so it's basically trying to allow any agent to call on capabilities, get weather, do a data lookup, and so forth. Doesn't have state management, stateless. And this announcement is very, very different. In with the A2A, there's a description that the agent tells other agents what it in fact can do. It does maintain state. It's much easier to go across different models and vendors. Because it maintains state, it's much better at long-term tasks or tasks that are event-driven. Hey, when such and such meets, when this airline seat meets this price, get in touch with me, kind of a thing. So I think that this is very different, and critical. And so this whole fundamentally, I think what's going on is that we're going from bilateral bureaucratic, capabilities to more market-based. And when you think about client server, kind of gets us some way there with, but this notion of agents that have state, have intelligence, have a path of getting a task done and don't stop doing it when they get that task completed or have concluded they've failed. That's a very different control architecture that's going on here. And so I think it's a big deal. So I'm voting for essential.
Okay. Essential suggestion. Alden, what did you think?
Yeah, definitely. This is one of the essential ones. But again, this is one of it'll be a slow rollout. So don't expect like instant, effect. And don't expect the same effect as MCP. MCP is now like standard. You're going to see MCP like blasted everywhere, everybody going to adopt it, right? So this is definitely essential for anybody in the agentic space, which is pretty much everyone. uh, the big thing to see here is, will Google, people trust Google, right? uh, that is a big question that we'll have to see if this get adoption.
Mm. It's
Yeah,
an open.
oh, sorry. Could I ask Alden a question on that? But yes, I mean, in terms of trusting Google, but it's very decentralized in terms of control, right? So if I adopt their architecture, Google's not in the middle of the transaction unless I want them to be.
Correct. And it's
Yeah,
an
but
open
they'll
source.
control it's like Chrome, right? They'll control the platform, they'll control the protocol. So uh, Anthropic was much easier to trust rather
I see.
than
But
Google.
Alden, I don't understand. In Chrome, I'm using their software as well as their architecture. Here, I'm not using their software. I'm just using their protocols.
In Chrome, the underlying aspect was Chromium, which was supposed to be open too. So it's to be seen here.
It's
Uh,
healthy skepticism, John.
yeah,
What's
healthy
coming
skepticism.
through?
Oh, I
It's
look, I don't
healthy
I don't trust
skepticism.
Google as far as I can throw them. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So it's just so when I want to point out that Ashish put a post on LinkedIn, and I really loved this diagram that very much talks about where MCPs are and where how A2A works with MCPs. So this diagram talks about two agents working together in the A2A way, right? But they have MCP protocols embedded in them to help them switch to local tasks and the like. So this is an easy diagram that you can use. Essential, okay? And Alden, okay with essential? All
yeah, yeah.
right. Essential it is, but this is a big deal. It's not yet out there. But another point, maybe to mention, John, that the number of partners that Google is working with is incredible. And they're trying to really, before they get out of the gate, to put it together so this is a robust platform. So this is cool as well. All right, essential it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one talks about the rise of AI reasoning model is making benchmarking more expensive.
It's a well-researched article with good numbers in them on the benchmarking specifically. What did you think about this, Alden?
So is it expensive to benchmark? Definitely yes. And they make a good point that there are some benchmarks that are like thousands of dollars. Like even for us in the RAG space, there are a couple of benchmarks where and it costs a lot to do it, right? But I would mark this as optional. Why? For two reasons. One is you know benchmarks run once by whoever to confirm, you know not every enterprise has to bear that cost again and again and again, right? Unless it's, I don't know, Bank of America and they want to run it every day or something like that, right? So while it's important to understand that yes, running a benchmark is expensive, I don't think this is like has far reaching consequences for everybody, right? The other aspect is the price of these models drop quite fast.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm hoping that in a couple of months, whatever is 1,000 will be $100.
Yeah, so optional from your perspective. John, what did you think?
yeah. First was going to say optional for sure, but then toward the end it said this thing about how academic institutions can't afford to do these tests, and I think that's important. And I was reminded of the beginning of Underwriters Laboratories, which is, after the 1893 Chicago World Exposition, they basically said, hey, a young electrical engineer said, hey, we need somebody to make sure these things are safe, right, and how they work. And so they started Underwriters Laboratories, and they did testing and so forth. Um, and they still have the commercial and the not-for-profit part of Underwriters Laboratories that does a lot of this testing. I do think we need independent folks who can afford to make the investment. I think these investments are going to go up in time, not down. As we get, we're going to have complex multi-agent systems. We're going to have things that launch as kind of like active marketplaces that are, going to be, marketplaces and expertise and activities. Inspecting those is going to be interesting. I just worry that this is going to be such an important infrastructure. I don't see any will on the part of the government to do anything like the Securities and Exchange Commission. I don't see an Underwriters Laboratories coming up to say if they're safe. So I don't know this particular. So I think I'm still going to come down on optional, but boy, is this ever yet another thing to emphasize the lack of third party point of view that's backed up in this fast moving essential capability.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, John, but yeah, I'm also an optional unfortunately, in this very cool, very important topic. See, the vendors give us, here's how our model stacks up against others in, right, in this nice graph, right? But can we trust those? And there's nobody to tell us whether yeah, nay, or indifferent, and no trusted body yet. So absolutely important topic, but optional for the current leaders. All right, optional it is. Let's proceed.
The next one that we have for today comes from Bessemer Venture Partners, and they have given us a AI agent autonomy scale.
Well, guys, I don't know how to rate this because I didn't agree with the definition, even though I do
Yeah.
agree with the five things that need to be embedded in the definition. But I think their definition is too limiting. Why is the chain of thought? Where's the multitude of
Exactly.
agents? Why is it sequenced workflows? Why is it only accurately? I just didn't quite line up behind this definition. And then they give the autonomy scale. And again, I had an issue with that because between L2 and N3, so they go gradations, no autonomy, and they gradate the autonomy acceleration across the 6 levels. I had an issue between L2 and L3. There are a number of really multitude of gradations that were not mentioned here. They jump from conditional agency to high autonomy. In code, maybe, but in other tasks, I don't think so. So I just, for that reason, I would go triple optional. But please, please tell me what you think. Alden, what did you think?
Yeah, it's good that they are tackling the problem because it was quite interesting that when I went to HumanX, the biggest question was what exactly is an agent, right? So it's good that they are putting some structure around it. I haven't analyzed this in detail to comment on whether the framework works or not, but I'm hoping that other people create frameworks like this such that we can have this easy definition of like L1, L2, L5.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that
yeah.
would be good to have, right? It's just I'm not sure I lined up behind it. John, what did you think?
Yeah, optional. This issue of what an agent is, I think, is complicated, and I think that I agree with you that Alden, you say it's good that they're tackling the problem. It's good that they tackle it well. I don't think they got. If we're going to take the football analogy, I don't think they got the runner on the ground in this one.
Yeah, and I almost wish they had taken a reverse approach, which is like, an outcome based approach, right? Like they have in self driving. Uh, you know, if L5 is an agent that manages teams and, a company with no employees run by an agent, right? If something like that, if they had to talk about the outcome rather than a technical definition,
Yeah,
then that would have
Yeah,
been much, much
yeah.
easier.
I would go a different way, which is I think you need to decompose what agency is, and I think we've got good definitions from the law in certain parts of this, which is that you have decision rights, who's accountable, how do you judge,
Yeah.
right? So I think they're starting at the agent level is too coarse. Starting at the word agent, you have to decompose it into what it is, and it also puts you in the continuity of previous stuff. Like there's been embedded policies. If you take a look at program trading on Wall Street, right? Those are agentic systems, right? They're aware of their environment, and they use programmatic logic. They may or may not be using neural networks and so forth, but they are agentic, and we've allocated decision response rights to them within policies, and we have risk controls and so forth in it. I think we take that same thing here,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you know, so to me, agents are a continuity of of software with a material difference. I'm not saying it's just the same, but they're on a spectrum that has moved up a bunch, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, let's do optional. And Vivek is somewhat agreeing, saying that other people are trying to get it in the level of gradations, but we'll have to standardize and see what happens here. Okay, so optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from Google and talks about their Firebase Studio and agentic developer tools and how they have the capability to replace some of the coding tools like Lovable, Cursor, and others.
Yes. What did you think about this, John? So Fire Base is probably I didn't quite, was a company that started in, or is a company that started in 2011, was acquired by Google in 2014. They do a lot of back-end tools adopted by a very large number of companies. The last count like 57,000. So, but this is like in the spirit of Google announcement 17, and this is yet another one. So, John, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I was going to give this an important. I mean, we've got an announcement here by Google. Some of these things are at parity with existing. They're playing catch up. A couple of places, like I believe in their multimodal model, it may be ahead of some of the Microsoft products here. But once again, we're in the land of. I mean, I just try to imagine the cereal aisle if it was or named by these knuckleheads who do the naming in this stuff. I'd have 1472 would be 1472A-Z would be cornflakes. I mean, come on, the naming conventions in this industry are absurd. But Firebase Studio is part of Vertex, as you say, was acquired. They kept the brand, blah blah. But I think that the announcement of the environment is just bringing them up to parity in most cases, and some advances, especially in multimodal activity. So important.
Important because it's a studio, an ability for developers to do a lot of work in the studio.
And also just an updating of the offering of one of the major players. If this was done by some marginal player, it'd be optional.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Alton, what did you think?
I agree. I would mark it as important and essential for anybody in the Google ecosystem. If somebody is in the Google ecosystem hosted on GCP, right, then these coding assistants definitely help the full agentic stuff. Looks like they are doing the Google version of Replit. You
Right. That's what I thought. Yes.
know, that's a good thing for anybody who's on
Yeah.
GCP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're not, then Replit is another platform to take a look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely catch up, and for people who have Google startup credits, that also is a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. But let's mark it as important and proceed, please, Ankash.
Next one comes from Andrej Karpati, and he talks about Power to the People, how LLMs flip the script on technology diffusion.
An
Correct.
interesting thinking, right? Alden, what did you think
This
here?
was super interesting thinking, right? In this article, he talks about how typically, you know, technologies like electricity start with government and then diffuse to the people, whereas AI is the reverse, where the value is derived first by the people but is having trouble going into the governments and the institution and the corporates. And he talks about like why that is. I found this his line of thinking is like extremely important to see here. And the best part I liked was where he says that you could be an expert in one thing, but now AI brings you up to speed on a lot of things, right? Like I could be a software engineer, but now with AI, I can do pretty good job with legal document review, right? And so a lot of benefit is flowing to the people, right? Now I mark this as essential for enterprises because he talks about how to derive value for enterprises if by diffusing AI into it. So I mark this as essential, like especially if we can understand what's blocking enterprises and institutions and governments from adopting this. And uh, I think with the agentic stuff coming out, a lot of the processes that enterprises, have friction on, there might be an opportunity to remove that friction.
Yeah, and we highlighted a number of times, John, right, that companies that propagate and enable employees to really dive in and work through how to use AI in their particular role will excel, right? Because exactly of how he points it out, he does it very cleanly. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought that this was important. Maybe essential. It's a fun read. I think Alden, his inversion of the traditional stuff may or may not be historically accurate, because I think we have a similar symbiosis of the center creating the core and then adoption at the edge. But I do think that the notion of people creating, being able to have expertise, and you see it. We have a number of the early stage VCs are saying this, where they're saying, the check sizes are half of what they were before. A company would have asked for 5 million is asking for 2.5 now. One would have asked for 10, is doing 5. The relative importance of VC expertise, that is, access to legal, HR, talent, business plans, all that other stuff, is getting commoditized. So the founders aren't willing to give up more of their company. I think it's a fantastic, I'm just working on an article now about, why it's an explosion in entrepreneurship, because we've got all this intellectual capital and expertise capital that's available. I think, that's just fantastic. I do think that his worry at the end is a good worry, which is, will the large entities wake up and use their market capital to push things that are real barriers to entry? And I do worry about that, because antitrust has been asleep in the United States since Clinton. They stopped collecting concentration ratio data. So I do think that it puts a lot of power at the center when they want to use it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
One thing he talks about is he feels like a generic LLM has less value inside an enterprise. But I feel people will find solutions to that. RAG is a nice way of creating a custom LLM. Uh, so, and agents are now helping with internal processes. So workflows are getting resolved. So the diffusion will happen
Yeah.
in enterprises too, just slower.
Well,
Yeah.
I
And
think
I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
I mean, look, Gary Marcus and a bunch of folks are out there quoting this S&P Global thing that says 42% of generative AI things are being abandoned because the prototypes aren't being used. Well, first of all, they're proof of concept, so that's the idea of the proof part of proof of concept. It's like you're trying to make sure it works. So the other thing is, if you actually look at the study by Standard & Poor's, yes, that's true, but 52% of people have implemented production systems and think that it has affected from 1 to 7 areas of their business significantly. So that's over half have at least 1, all the way up to 7 significant impacts. And what that says to me is not that generative AI isn't working. It's that generative AI is hard to do, and those who do it win. So anyway, it's just the naysayers are so. Gary Marcus is as sloppy on his naysaying as Sam Altman is on his claims of generative of AGI. Okay,
Yeah.
you have idiots on both ends.
Yeah, it is on both ends. But so let's mark it as essential. And because the main message, to Walden's point, to the enterprise is that if you can marshal the ingenuity of individuals in your enterprise using AI, you can go far. But that's you need to kind of get systems to actually put them together into prototypes and operating systems and operational systems.
Yeah, and guess what? Great value creation is hard to do.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but our hand goes to those who can do it. So that's the main point. Essential it is. Let's proceed. Ankash, please.
So the last one that we have for today comes from OpenAI. So they have updated ChatGPT to reference our past chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming from the Soviet Union, right? I'm I am not. I'm going to turn this off. But for many people, this is actually maybe very useful. So it's a toggle that allows ChatGPT to use your prior chats in creating more context of how you view the world and responding to you with that within that context. So it's an important feature. It's just for some people this might not be as important. So I marked it as optional because the other guys like Gemini and the like have that already. So I think it's optional as a general news. But what did you think, Alden?
I marked it as essential for two reasons, right? First thing is it's coming from OpenAI, 400 million active users every day, right? Something that a no-name player does is very different from something that Apple does, for example, right? And when it comes to such AI, ChatGPT is the Apple, right? So that is why the one of the reasons I marked this as essential. The second
So
reason is it is quite a impactful feature, right? All of us who have used ChatGPT know that every prompt had to previously start with, like, hello, I am Alden. I am the CEO of customgpt.ai, and this is what our system does, right? Like, I literally got tired of typing that same introduction every prompt. Right. And now it changes all of that. If it knows me, if it knows my past chats, right, it can significantly improve the quality of the responses. So I think we were talking about how AI is helping individuals, and this now takes it to the next level as such.
yeah, but you're making an assumption that this is really good. And so think about if you create a real digital twin of yourself, put into it all of your posts or give it the access to the posts, they get a lot of more wisdom into your digital twin and then give it to ChatGPT. I think it will do better because just with the memory, it is critical. I get you. And I think Ashish is chiming in saying its memory is essential for personalization. Agree. But would it actually do a good job? That's where, and how much it would use it and where, that's where my questions are.
Yeah.
John, what did you think? Mhm.
I'm smiling because I turned this thing on and said, "Do you want me to give you a bio of you?" And so I'll just read a little bit from this. Let's see. John Sfiocla, the boardroom brainstormer, meets AI's sharpest edge. A Harvard-published strategist and Renaissance thinker, John blends the soul of a business philosopher with the hustle of a startup founder, and it goes from there. So, given that, I mean, this is when you talk about Luda, it's expertise. It's genius. This thing. The,
Because it created such a glowing bio for you.
yeah.
Aha.
the,
Okay, now we
no,
know.
no, no. But I was between optional and essential. I do think that I think this is one of those features that just all kidding aside, just experiencing it that it is the core of personalization. It is also the core of surveillance. As you didn't say it that way, Luda, but one of the implications of your
Yeah.
nervousness, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
And so I think this is, look, they're building cognitive. What's happening is we have computational cognition of each citizen, right? And the Chinese, score, it's be trivial to create a citizen score based on this. So uh, I might give it an essential.
Okay.
Yeah.
Essentially, it is. That's our last article, and let's get the score here, Ankash.
Yes, Luda, coming right up.
So we have like 3 essentials, 1 important, and 2 optionals. Correct?
Great.
Yes. So very impactful Friday. Thank you, Alden, for joining. Thank you all for listening. Ashish, Ram, Vivek, thank you for commenting. Hey guys who are listening, please comment also. We would love your comments and we'd love to have a more interaction with the audience. So thank you very much and have happy Friday. We'll see you on Monday.
Great. Thanks, Laura.
Bye-bye.